this chamber, the fight goes on. Whatever happens tonight, Lambeth colleagues, and this you better remember, Lambeth is not Clay Cross. Lambeth is organised, is prepared to fight, has been working with the trade unions and the community for the past year on this subject, has been working London-wide, has been working nationally, will fight and will win.
There's no judge, Mr. Mayor, that can take away from us the pride of maintaining the services and the programme of this council. Judges can decide what they may, but those judges, I can assure you, do not represent the people of Lambeth, or do they represent working people throughout the inner cities. Whatever the judges have said, there is no way that those 31 comrades that stood firm will ever be forgotten here in Lambeth.
There's definite political aims behind the Tory party's way of attacking this borough and other boroughs. They're determined to smash up local authorities for more than one reason. I mean, they're determined to centralise all authority back to government. If they could abolish Lambeth, they will abolish Lambeth, make no mistake. And that's their main aim, is to smash up local authorities.
Well, I don't like the idea because it was an elected body. So that is, in a way, that is taking away people's rights to vote. So now we're not going to have a say in whatever happens. Not like when we had a say, not that we got anywhere, but now it's going to be even worse, isn't it?
It's very sad. And the majority of people, in my opinion, are against that.
You know that some of the local councillors stand to lose personally and be bankrupted personally, and I am actually in sympathy.
It's a shame, really, I think. Yes.
I think it's outrageous, absolutely outrageous.
I think it's a rotten, thing to have done. I mean, we're losing our sort of, what I want to use. I mean, democracy.
On March the 5th, 1986, the High Court decided that 32 Lambeth councillors were guilty of willful misconduct, and as a consequence, they should be heavily fined, possibly bankrupted and forced out of office. Their crime was refusing to sack large numbers of their workforce and make cuts in services. The local community who had elected them were given no say in this decision. Overnight, local democracy disappeared. On April the 3rd, the Lambeth Workers' Joint Trade Union Committee and workers they represent took action in defence of their jobs and their community.
Well, today we've occupied the Town Hall to maintain the political control of the council until the May 8 elections. And really today is about keeping the minority Tory councillors out of the building so they can't make any manoeuvres to reduce the rate.
Yeah. Right. The first thing is getting the place secure, and the second thing is getting the banners in place. We also then need to have a rota so that the doors that we are not sure are totally secure are well covered. I'm not going to ask for volunteers for this. I've got names, and we'll just make a rota, and you'll be told what door and when. The other things that we need to think about straight away are, one, people that are going off to sleep, where they're going to sleep, and can we all stay in one place for sleeping? It would be warmer that way.
Well, I think people don't really fully understand the implications of the cuts. If you reduce the budget on an area such as social services, that means people are going to die. It's as simple as that. That means children are going to be put at risk. It means an old age pensioner somewhere is going to die of hypothermia through lack of care. It means people are going to starve. particularly the elderly, if there's no proper Meals on Wheels services. That's what cuts mean in social services. If you cut into the housing budget, that means people will permanently live in slums for a long time to come, and that means even more filth and deprivation into this borough that's got enough of it already. That's what cuts means. It's not just about reducing the size of a financial budget. It means having a devastating effect on working people. Deprivation in the borough is some of the worst in the country. Unemployment's one of the worst in the country, and so there's a real need for extra resources rather than reduced resources for the borough.
How difficult is it to find work here in Lambeth?
Really difficult.
It is it?
Yeah. Every time you go down the job centre, you go for a job interview, and if you've got no qualifications, they don't want to know you. So it's impossible to get a job.
I've applied for about 4 jobs, and I've been turned down. So it is a bit stressing, and it's just boring.
For every job vacancy in Lambeth, there are over 100 unemployed people, and almost 70% of all young black people are out of work. There are more homeless people in Lambeth than anywhere else in London.
Can you tell me how you end up living under the South Bank?
Well, I'm leaving my husband. That's about a year ago. And since then, I've not been able to find myself a decent place or a decent home or anything to live in. And I've been at the council twice. And they haven't even helped me to get me off the streets.
Which council have you been to?
Brixton, that's where I was.
And what do they say?
They said they just couldn't help do anything. So I'm still out on the streets.
How do you feel about it?
Sometimes a bit bad, but sometimes I'm a bit annoyed with myself for being down here.
Well, we were in a bed and breakfast, but we can only stay in a bed and breakfast for so long. My brother was he's just 16, and I was claiming for him because we got no parents. But he's an Easter leaver, so he can stand on for himself. So we were alright for staying in a bed and breakfast while he was classed as a child. But we're in, he's in a squat, I think.
There are nearly 15,000 houses designated as unfit in Lambeth. There are 27,000 families on the council's waiting list. Nearly 1/3 of all residents are on or below the poverty line. Half of all the people in Lambeth rely upon supplementary benefit and other meagre state handouts. More people are admitted to hospital suffering from mental illness than anywhere else in London. And what's been the Tory government's response to this frightening picture of decay and deprivation?
The Tory government policy, Madam Mayor, is, of course, that services should be provided to those that can pay for them. That's not our position. We say the services of this council should be there for those that need them. That's the philosophy of this Labour Council and of our trade unions. The Tory government has stolen away from this authority £113 million because we have not toed the line of the Tory government. That represents for working people in this borough £3.85 per week from every family has been stolen by this government. We demand that money back for Lambeth. We demand that money so that we don't make cuts. But in fact, we are able to extend the service where it's necessary, and of course that we can reduce the rates. The stolen money is the people's money, and no Tory government has the right to take it away from us.
So why is the people's money being withheld from them, leading to severe, often fatal cuts in essential services? Because these services are being pared down and packaged into a form suitable for privatisation. Already, the multinationals are queuing up, eager and willing to make a profit out of disadvantage and basic need. Many of them have learned their lessons in North America, where their record is often one of failures, fines and abuses, combined with huge profits. A similar freedom to exploit doesn't yet exist in this country, but it will if this government acting as the agents of international capital, can destroy the trades union movement.
Don't want private to take over because they took over Wandsworth. Wandsworth had about 100 complaints a week out of the councillors when the council was there. Since the councillor's gone, they've proven that they have collected over 1,000 complaints a week. Since private's been in, and private's saying they're doing such a blinding job. They're not, they're rubbish. We've been down there and it's no good. It's not as clean as we are.
You're doing something worthwhile for your own community. You should stand up and be counted for that.
That's right, exactly. Right. The political aim, I believe, it's directly from the government, is to get the working class people to submit. Because of the very, very difficult economic situation which we have, they've got to try and force up unemployment, they have to try and cut the wages, and they just have to try and get the working class to submit. But as can be seen, I think they're going to have a very, very difficult job.
What does it mean for trade unionism then?
It means that we're now in head-on conflict with the government, the trade unions, and that the trade unions have to stand firm. It means that they completely want to break up the unions through the laws, to break such system like we have here, a closed shop system, where all the members are union members. That, of course, they'll try to get to go, and to force down wages and conditions as well, to be able to meet the needs of their crisis.
The Tory attacks aren't just vindictiveness, but a need to create a low-wage economy so that capital can make the highest possible returns at a time when it is in crisis. All the gains that have been won by workers over the years would have to be taken back.
What I think trade unionists in local authorities should be doing is working more with their clients, the people, the community they serve. The last 5 years there's been a number of demonstrations whereby Lambeth Council and the council workers have actually marched against the cuts like rate capping and so on. And it's in fact often been the large number of disabled people on those demonstrations that has actually added a tremendous amount of weight to those demonstrations.
Remembering what happened when the Tories cut the services last time, which resulted in a demonstration down the town hall, I should like the Conservatives to get back in.
How does it affect people like yourself, Terry?
It doesn't affect me so much because I can get about. I'm one of the lucky ones. It affects a lot of people in wheelchairs. We have a social club here. It did affect that last time. We had a Conservative council because we were cut from once a fortnight to once in 6 weeks, which is why we had the demonstration.
If they could end up in a wheelchair for a week and see how it would affect them, you know, male or female, if they're stuck in 4 walls and that, you know, and they've got to rely on other people to get them out and things like that, then they'd find how it is like, you know.
We are human beings. We do think, and we do realise that we are reliant on other people, and cutback certainly isn't the answer.
The voluntary sector is there to supplement and support the public sector. It is part and parcel of the same thing, working to campaign and help to organise and give resources in terms of information and support to members of the community, and that is supporting the public sector.
Looking at the Tory budget, which I've got in front of me, it's a so-called no redundancy budget, and our funding for next year is £42,000. That is what is cut. We would be made redundant in the so-called no redundancy budget. Besides ourselves, these direct cuts affect the unemployed centre, is recently been established in Lambeth, also Lambeth CDA, Community Development Association, also Lambeth Home Workers Projects, and I mean I think this really shows the commitment of the Tories to the unemployed, the unwaged, home workers, and community development in Lambeth. It's nil.
They tell us that we're too generous to the voluntary sector, to the grants we pay out, to those people that provide a service as a compliment to those of Lambeth. Well, there's no way this council's going to walk away from that voluntary sector either. We defend their jobs just as we defend council jobs and council services.
The attack on Lambeth hasn't ended with the disqualification of an elected body simply for delaying a rate. Since 1979, the Tories have been preparing and a whole string of legislation has been introduced to legalise their attacks. If they can't get their way by consent, then they'll use the law. The immediate result for Lambeth will be the loss of 1,500 jobs and severe cuts in services. And this is only the beginning.
The fact that a government like this government can be taking people's rights away, people's right to strike, people's right to vote, the way in which the unions have done in the past, of course is a threat. But I think the point has come now where the unions throughout this country, and indeed across the world, have got to now start sticking together.
I think we've seen from the miners' strike, we're now seeing what the state is doing to Wapping, and indeed cuts will mean that this borough could very quickly turn into slums. There'll be enormous unemployment, and scenes which we've seen, like the 2 Brixton riots, will be a commonplace.
If union power within local authorities is destroyed, there will be frightening consequences for the whole trades union movement.
They bought the power workers off, they took the miners on and they consider they defeated them. They've taken on the print workers now, sticking themselves behind barbed wire to try and defend them. They're after local authority workers, particularly, because we're the last mass organised workforce left in the country that they haven't taken on and beaten. And they're determined to smash us up.
A quarter of the Transport and General Workers Union will be wiped out, and the National Union of Public Employees will cease to exist. The National Association of Local Government Officers will be destroyed, a half of the General Municipal and Boilermakers Union will disappear, and the AEUW and UCAT will receive severe body blows, greatly reducing their power. Who will then provide the resistance to these all-out attacks on trades unionism and the working class? The trades union bureaucracy can only be relied upon to organise retreats. The responsibility for action lies with ordinary trade union members.
I think what needs to happen is that there needs to be a really positive response from the Labour movement now about the issue that's going on in Lambeth and in Liverpool. If they step back from it, then it'll be another retreating move. They need to step forward and take this up as a major issue. They've won the argument with the people about democracy.
Well, I want to see the unity that has now been built up between trade unions, between the local communities and between Labour councillors maintained. I want to see the next wave of government attacks, which are inevitable, being resisted in whatever form, so that the government is defeated. I think we can do it, and I think the example of Lambeth is one which people will be able to follow.
This week for me has been a very bad week. I've been on the GLC and I saw the abolition of the GLC on Monday. I was in this council chamber last night and I saw 31 councillors being debarred, and all because those elected members were fighting for services for those people who need it. And I think if the workers themselves don't stand up to the forces that are behind this government, and I'm talking about the courts, I'm talking about the police, I'm talking about the armed forces, unless the workers themselves stand up, then there is no hope for the workers of Lambeth or anywhere else.
They've got to step forward now and say, enough is enough. We're not prepared to take this any longer, and put it to their members direct, and I'm confident that their members will respond. But they won't respond without leadership. It's up to the local leadership to do it, put the pressure on the national union leadership to follow up that argument.